Oh shit! It was the basically the what you call it. Grand, divine, gracious. Hope you enjoying the retrograde. I am. Hope you're enjoying the coming to the aspect of the events that are coming into play. I am. The lock and key. Sometimes the things that we are stuck within trying to find keys to access, we're actually looking for the locks. And it's based upon the program of always searching for something and knowing everything's within. And we're gonna get very, very deep tonight. We're gonna. I made a post earlier, and I was like, in the promotion for the lecture, of course. And I said, tap into this energy before you get into that full moon. I didn't understand the significance of what I was doing because I'm moving within the spirit. But those moments when you're actually able to sit there, like I just put out a key. The keys are not going to be within the true keys of that knowledge are not going to be within what your identity or that infrastructure was made to be. That's not where the key is going to be. You're not going to find yourself in that space. You're not going to find what you need within that space because you need something outside of that. That will be the key. The key is that knowledge. The key is coming into that information. The key is coming into that knowledge. The key is applying that knowledge. Once you have that knowledge, how you apply it, that's how you create the key. This takes you into the aspect of always needing a leader, always needing somebody to lead you. We're looking for a leader. We're looking for an example. And this leaves those thoughts that we always going on, that human thought process of humanity is what has you locked within the space of what you're doing next. Because you come in, drop that eye shade to the corner. So I know you in. That mindset, that mantra of looking for a leader, the fundamentals built within that thought process. You have to allow your infrastructure that your identity has been built in. That's the humanity. That's the ego. Your identity has been built into to everything that is bringing you pain at this point. Everything that's bringing you to this point is challenging that infrastructure. Now, these things have happened a lot of times before. Think about when you were 12. Think about when you were little. Think about when you were little, when you came into the aspect of you being little, being that little type, being that little guy, little goddess, and you were first coming in, and the indoctrination process based upon the identity, based upon the set of codes that you needed to come in alignment with to be accepted within that space. This is the aspect of everybody comes down here with a body. Everybody comes down here with a meat suit. If your mindset's stuck within, okay, I get a meat suit, I get this body, this is going to be the greatest gift. You need something to shock your thought process and take you outside of the intellectual to actually start driving to get into your intelligence. The intelligences, the intelligences of yourself, the higher intelligence, the higher intellect, the higher aspect of yourself. Intellect for you to study and learn. This is that nexus point. This is that nexus point I've been speaking on. This is that you've heard everybody talking about. This is that point of change. This is that point that you're needing. And now you're realizing that you're the savior. You being the savior, you being that Christos, you bringing that, you putting in your work in yourself is going to lay lines for everybody else to come into their thought process of needing something to save them. We're stepping outside of this process of thinking that we need to save somebody. You got to come out of that thought process thinking that you need to save somebody. We got to come out of this thought process about unity. Bobby Hemming broke that down a lot of times. You got to come out of this aspect of unity. You got to come out of this aspect of fundamental coming togetherness. You got to come out of that process in order to step into the chaos of what if we don't all come together? Because you're choosing a side. If my mind is left to only choose sides, so I'm picking between, we need to come together. Now that you come together, you need something to come together against. Now that you've come together in unity, you need something to come together against, to fight against. That's the conflict. So you're stuck within this. You have the lock. All you're doing is initiating. You have the key. You initiate the key. By you just speaking, you have the key. That's why they say the words are spells. So say, don't say you can't breathe, because then, of course, you can't breathe. You got on a mask. You'll have every image and every reasoning behind why you can't breathe. Of course you can't breathe. You got a mask on. Of course you can't breathe. You stuck in your house all day, so you ain't getting no fresh air. Of course you can't breathe. I have to depend on something else to feed me. I need this money from here, so that's why I can't breathe. I can't. That spell is a broad spectrum that connects to every other thought in what you're thinking about on choosing the side. Whether you choose you can breathe or you can't breathe. You know common sense that you can breathe. Coming into that higher aspect of yourself as the occultist, the thinker thinks they can't breathe. Here's the reason that I think I can't breathe, so that exists. The doer says, I know I can breathe. Both within the same space. Okay. If you're stuck choosing the sides within your space, then every time that you say, oh, I can't breathe, or I can't breathe, or I can't breathe, or so you're saying you can breathe. So you're saying you can breathe, therefore you're against Black Lives Matter. I watched a video the other week, actually. And it was I think she's from Chicago. She's originally from Africa somewhere. But in her, she was like, Black Lives Matter does not come out whenever it's black on black crime. They only come out when it's a white cop doing this or whatever it is. They're coming out for basically a publicity stunt. It's like publicity. I'm coming out standing against this, but when it comes to it should be at all times. What she was speaking from, based on her passion, based from that emotional standpoint, was stuck within the conflict. They couldn't understand what she was trying to say. It makes sense. We don't want something that down here at this level, we don't want something that makes sense, because it forces us to step out of our logic and reason about anything else. It makes us step out of the logic and the reason for anything else. That can't be right, because then that challenges everything that challenges everything within my infrastructure that I've used to believe in, that I've used to this point, that I've used to go forward in, that I've used to speak upon, that I've used to live, that I've used to thrive, that I've thrived in. Those imbalances, those algorithms that you set within that space of your mind being in this continuum of keeping this infrastructure together, that shit's no longer working. That shit's no longer going to bring you the same. It's not going to bring you, it's only going to, you're starting to see that it's only going to bring you the same shit over and over and over again. And the same thing, watched another video because I'm aware that I can see it from that different level. I watched the other video when all across the world, within the prison, the white people and the black people were standing together and protesting. They gave you images of the younger generation not liking what they're actually standing up against what they were taught. All of that's within the spiritual manner. It's the awakening. You can see they're feeding based upon your emotions. When you start to be able to see that, you're seeing them feed upon your emotions. They need you to be emotionally invested. They need that currency. The best way to get at your currency is to keep you emotionally invested. That's why you think about something, you've been doing it unconsciously your entire fucking life and didn't even realize it. And that's what we're breaking down. That's what the occultist mindset breaks down, to bring you into the understanding the links in between what the hell you were sitting there. Oh, that's what that meant. And that's what this was. And that's what that is. You're stuck in this aspect of retail therapy. You ever heard somebody talk about, yo, I need some retail therapy? And even if shorty go with her friends and they just look through the mall at stuff that they want. Look through the mall, stop over here at the Starbucks or wherever, the coffee shop, whatever they're going to eat in the food court, eat from over there, do their little thing over there, and then they go back home to reality. They needed that moment outside of their, they needed that moment of escape outside of their reality to gather everything around, using that substructure to bring themselves back into balance. That's not going to happen anymore. That's non-existent. The COVID shit, that showed you it's non-existent. We can turn it on, we can turn it off. We can turn it on, we can turn it off. We can turn it on, we can turn it off. You're still going to be within this space, structured within this space. So since you're stuck within this mindset, stuck within this space of constantly going back and forth with, you need that conflict, it'll never go away. Time loops. Look at it like, okay, now June 19th coming up is Juneteenth. I honestly don't even, I've done research on it, but it's like Juneteenth to me is an equivalent to Kwanzaa. Juneteenth in my mind is like Kwanzaa. It's like Kwanzaa. So you got Kwanzaa instead of Christmas. You got Juneteenth instead of 4th of July. You got every month's Black History Month instead of just one month being Black History Month. That aspect is the realm of choices that are on the tray for you to just pick upon so you can be fed upon. Those imbalances in your algorithms that feed based upon your feelings. What makes you feel good? Dr. Layla Africa's book, lectures, he went very deep into you eat with your emotions. You eat with your emotions. You eat based upon your emotions. You think based upon your emotions. That's the humanity aspect. You're feeding based upon emotion. So you're acting out based upon emotion. So when something gets triggered and you don't get the necessary answer that you're looking for within that acceptance, the acceptance module, what you're expecting, you can't accept anything else but what you expected to happen. And you go back and forth inside of your head within your subconscious and your ego and your identity, challenging your infrastructure of what you're used to doing to getting what you're doing based upon what you're used to doing, based upon what you are used to getting. Why do anything different if I know if I do this, I know exactly what to expect? Being stuck within that conflict of cause and effect of basically you're not even stuck within a cause and effect, you're stuck within two effects. You're stuck within the two extremes. So, because you don't realize the original cause, or you will not bring light to the original cause, the original source. This is understanding that correspondence. So when you start doing things like this within that wave, on that wavelength, everything that can be made from that wavelength is created based on that wavelength. So if I keep a certain stream of everybody on this jet stream on this wavelength, based upon imbalances in your emotions, guess what you're doing when you step forward? Everything that you do is going to be seen to keep you within that space, feeding your need for opposition. Think about Love and Hip Hop and how it's a nationally syndicated. Motherfuckers see that shit all over the fucking world. Love and Hip Hop. Now go back to, if you weren't living at that time or in that space, think about an old show like Dallas, or an old show like Dallas, or nighttime soap operas and daytime TV and shit like that. That's all Love and Hip Hop is. That's all Love and Hip Hop is. Because they are ushering in under the new guys. Everything is going to be blackface. Everything is going to be blackface. The reason that you cannot see everything being blackface is because you set a certain image to what blackface is. You've given power to the symbol of what blackface is. In the deepest part of the reality, the reason that you get so upset with blackface is because you're living in black space. You're living in blackface. The reason that you get so upset with blackface, when you see blackface, when you see black rhetoric, when you see black stereotypes being acted out by things, by other reflections or the side effects, is because you're resonating, you're living blackface. You're living in blackface. Just take that thought, let it sizzle in your spirit. You're living in blackface. You don't want to give up what you're getting based on where you're at. You don't want to give up what you're getting from where. You don't want to give up the infrastructure of what you're getting based on where you're at in that space and time. You don't want to give that shit up. And the reason you don't want to give it up, negative, positive, good, and bad, is because you know exactly what to expect from that space. You know, if you act out and you protest and you march, you know, if you have that argument and that disagreement, you know exactly what you're going to get. More of the same. We're going outside of imagery and we're going into the thought. We're going into that frequency and that vibration of what you're on. I went deeper. I went into this week. The God Hour podcast, affirmation deflection disorder. No matter what affirmation that you set, you're allowing these things to not only deflect from the source of your affirmation to stay within the disorder. You have to become the disorder. You got to become the deflection in order for your affirmation to take root. I use a big example. I've been listening to for the last 4 or 5 days for this week, ever since Tuesday. I've been listening to this one project that my man Ricky put me on for abundance, attracting success and power in that powerful way. It's a subliminal. You go to sleep, listen to the message, and you just allow it to take over. That came right in alignment. This is how you understand if you're becoming or if you're serving. If you're becoming, you see it as, yo, that shit came right. That came right in alignment with what I was already doing. If you're serving, you're always going to be searching. So your intention is always going to be set upon, I hope this. This is why hope and wishing and dreaming and just wanting better shit in the fucking burning fucking house. You want better conditions in the fucking burning house. This is where that comes from based upon serving. I hope this gives me $1 million. I hope this gives me this. You are never going to get the $1 million because you're not within the mindset that I am wealth. You're not in the mindset that I am prosperous. You're not in the I'm prosperity, so I'm prosperous. I am abundant, so I become abundant. I am wealthy, so I become wealth. That's my mask. That's the face that I wear. So everything that I do is always going to be about wealth. Everything that I do is always going to be about prosperity. I've unlocked with that key and tapping into myself. So this moment right now that we're experiencing with this new energy and retrograde and super moons and all this is based upon the thought process of setting the tone for it to come into existence to happen. That's why I said the thing about the 21-day, it's a 21-day program. Using that algorithm and we put that out, it's like a group. It's a group. You ain't got to know nobody in the group or anything of that nature. You ain't got to know anybody in the group, be around anybody in the group. When you get invited in the group, just listen to that music every night. This is taking you into your mental is what's going to come into that unity. Tapping into that energy. We're looking at images, and if we're not getting the image, what we put into our minds based upon that image, if it doesn't come the way that I see it or the way that I need it to be, then I'm going to dismiss it. We're becoming dismissive based upon the fundamental subjects that have been programmed into your mind, into your subconscious overall. So you'll sit there over and over and over and over again. It didn't come this way. It didn't come that way. So your now overall image is going to be based upon that thought. It didn't come the way that I needed it to come. Because you're looking at it based upon an image that was already fundamentally sound put into your mind. But since you don't understand the symbol, you dismiss anything that doesn't. When you want to switch into the wokeness, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Since you came into wokeness, as we looking back, we're going back and forth. What you brought from, since you didn't understand religion and the basis of what it was and meaning that was binding is to bind, and you looked at it in a negative aspect, you brought that same energy or that archetype or that cipher that you didn't unlock in that previous level, you brought it to this level. You brought from that level to this level. You brought that into this new abyss. You brought that down to the rabbit hole with you. So now that's what you got to look at everything through. This is the aspect when I get into whenever I'm speaking on, you have to allow yourself to where you are at is where you start. Where you are at is where you start. Studying all and following none. Because if you get stuck fundamentally thought process in your mind, you left out of religion. Like most motherfuckers, back in the 70s and 80s, most people in the 70s and the 80s, they were always on some, they went from Jesus, then they were going to prison, then they had the movie Deuce Deuce when they kept doing Deuce Deuce, then they went into Allah, then they went into Islam, and they found the brotherhood, they found the nation, and that was a driving force. All you're doing is replacing one for the other. You replace one set of locks for another set of locks, looking for keys, looking for the keys outside of yourself, or we're going to leave you drained because you don't know what it is that's inside you. So when they say know thyself, in that aspect, when you think about know thyself, that's the key. You have to know, that's the first key that you have to unlock, is knowing yourself. As you start to know yourself, everything else becomes a cinch. Once you understand that you must die first, everything else becomes a cinch. Everything else becomes easy. The Gnostic text, when you read the Gnostic text, you go into Gnosticism. The human body is the most putrid and the most vile product created. It is an intruder. Whenever you're going through the text and they're talking about the intruder, they're talking about the trespasser, they're talking about the human body. When they're talking about human thought being a trespasser, the intruder, that is the intruder. It's intruding on you learning. Your identity intrudes on you actually learning anything. Two things that were shown to us, what was not essential. I remember everyone was talking about, and still talking about to this day, why teachers are so underpaid. Why teachers are so underpaid and why entertainers and athletes are so highly paid. One level to that, you got to keep the gladiators and the searches, keep everybody under that same thought process. They showed you by when schools were shut down, when churches were shut down. This is a spiritual process. Churches shut down. So what you thought spiritualism actually was, based upon the spirit of going to whatever mosque, whatever church, whatever building you went to worship, that shit is not real. Whatever job that you held on to, that shit ain't fucking real. That shit can be turned on and off like a light switch. Whatever school that you went to and what you were being taught in school don't even fucking exist anymore. That structure no longer exists. If you're in serving something, then you always are going to focus on, I'd be glad when they open the schools back up, get these kids out of my house. I'd be glad when the job opened back up, even though I'm still loving this unemployment type shit. You think things like this, you think subtle aspects of being stuck within the conflict of what you're trying to get into. Before I forget to put this point out. In doing the manifestations with doing that, before, like a couple weeks before that, I did my ritual, did my spiritual bath, cleansed myself, got myself right. There was a lot of energy I was taking on, and then stepping into that new forecast, reset my altars, did that process, went through the whole spiritual process of building, allowing myself to become more in tune, but everything became more intense. Until you understand it, it's always going to challenge you. So Wednesday, was it Thursday? It was Wednesday. Wednesday, I went and got it was time. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go get my locks retwisted. I called my man that cuts my hair, called him. I was like, I set up an appointment for Thursday. I said anytime after 2 because I got sessions all the way up until about 1:30. So I set that up. And I went to go get my locks retwisted, new color. And everywhere that I went was there, I could see growth within that space. I could see things being conformed to that space. So when I'm having conversations, I'm gonna get into the balance of living within your truth, living within yourself, standing on your square, standing within that knowledge. And me unlocking that space of me standing on my square, living within myself, living within my truth, living within my abundance, my wealth, that I am, that energy, that power, invoking that. When I went out and I went and got my hair retwisted, I'm talking to my stylist, and she's pouring out all this information, everything she's been going through within her changes, just to accept herself. And I can come from a space of like, you're standing in your truth. You're setting your tone. You're setting your tones for what you need. You're setting your tones for what you need to do. You're setting your tones and you're stepping forward. The next day, I came home, had a couple conversations, set up a couple more consults. Set up the consults. Had a session that Thursday. Had a couple of my sessions that Thursday. And then I went to go get my hair cut. Went to go get lined up, get my beard, everything look fresh. Get real guy king, get real Titan King fresh. The conversation I had with him was outside of his space. At the end of the I'm going to start from the end of the conversation and work my way back. At the end of the conversation, after my haircut was done, we were done with my haircut, already did the transaction, whatever. I was like, you know what's crazy? We never had these type of conversations when you was at the barbershop. We never had these type of conversations within the infrastructure or the barbershop that you were in. It wasn't until you were put into this space where of the most humble space that we actually are building on this, had this build of a conversation. We talked about everything from grants and breaking down and understanding everything, being reflections, more of what I'm accustomed to speaking on. This is me. This is being in your divine favor. This is what Bobby Hemming was talking about, putting things into your favor. This is that shift in everything coming into your favor. Everything that you're speaking on, everything that you're living through, everything that is no longer subjective to this new level of energy is what's coming to the surface. If you've done the work and been doing the work, or if you've not been doing the work, this is where it's going to show. This is that season. This is like people talk about different seasons. Remember, every season, you're either winning or you're learning. There's no such thing as a loss, because from your losses are actually what you're learning. So from what you learn is how you learn how to succeed or how you learn how to win. You apply that algorithm. You have the formula, you apply it, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then you go back and tinker with it. That's the aspect of coming into understanding with yourself. But you got to do this based upon forgiving yourself first. People want to do 1,000,001 fucking rituals during full moons, new moons, and every other fucking moon. But you go back to doing the same exact shit because you don't understand the fundamental that in you setting that affirmation, you are now going to deflect from every aspect that would stop you from that affirmation coming into play. You're taking off that band-aid. You're taking off the mask. You're taking off the band-aid. So when you start looking at things like, gotta wear a mask when you go into this place, I said it like this. There's only 2 places I'm gonna wear a mask at. There was only 2 places. around here that I'm gonna wear a mask in. The store where I get all of my products, crystals and stuff like that, books and stuff like that, and to my hairdresser, to the one that my stylist that did my locks. Only two places I'm gonna wear a mask in. Because that's something that is embodying something that's changing to evolve the evolution of me. That's going to show the evolution of me. If the store shut down tomorrow and said I got to wear a mask to walk into Walmart, I guess I'm not going to Walmart because there's nothing I need inside Walmart anyway. I'm outside of that spectrum. Now, if I'm going to Sprouts, if I go to Sprouts and they say you got to put a mask on, okay, cool, because they got my pudding that I like to indulge in. You're not choosing sides anymore. Choosing sides is not going to work anymore. You're getting stuck between the locks, and then you can't use the key because the key is within you. So you're looking at that spot, you're like, nah, I can't go over there no more because they did this, this, and this. Your key no longer fits into that lock to unlock what needs to be unlocked within that space. That door is closed to you. You have to allow that door to close. You got to allow that door to close. You got to allow that infrastructure to burn down. This is when you start getting into the symbolism of everybody. Now apparently they turned down a whole bunch of statues which are on ley lines. And if you understand the properties of that bronze or that brass or that copper being set on that line of ownership of that energy, everything that symbol represents is now put into that energy. So if you're looking at it from that aspect, that shit need to fuck happen. Everybody has their space. Everybody has what they're supposed to be doing, everybody has their space and what they're supposed to be doing within that script. The way that you see the results of your script coming into play, and you're actually playing out the script that you're supposed to be playing out in, the role that you're supposed to be in, is when every challenge brings a necessary result of uncomfortableness. You need the discomfort. You need to take yourself out of the structure of something being okay, that safehood, that safety net. You got to let that safety net be removed in order for you to see if you truly can fly. I said this before when I was speaking on my transition, my full transition into being the counselor, being the teacher, being the lecturer, being the speaker. There was always a part and an aspect of me because I had a safety net that did not allow me to speak to a certain level. I could get to a certain level, I could say certain things, but then I'll always spend my time in the foreground of myself because I wasn't using my forward thought, in the background of myself saying, should I have said that this time? Maybe I went too far. Nah, fuck that. You went exactly how you needed to go. The battles between my ego, those triggers will let me know that my ego was still able to feed from. This went into the aspect when I was breaking down, like when I finally left my job. I saw it for what it was. There's levels. The levels based upon serving would be more like the drug dealer and the connect or the plug for you new kids. The plug, the connect, the congealier, the congealier, the plug, the connect, and then the dealer. The dealer and the plug are in the same conflict. I need the dealer to deal, and I need the plug to give me that, to plug me into that outlet. Neither one of them are connected to the source. This one's connected to the source by way of being the plug, but it's not the connect. And then the dealer is connected to the plug, grabbing power and its energy from the plug because the plug is into the connect. It's closest to the connect. the middleman process. You're going into this aspect of you're no longer need the middleman. That interface of the middleman, when you think about any pantheon from the Orishas, Kemetic science, whatever science that you come into at first, that's your middleman. That's your middleman through your serving. So I used this example earlier today. So based upon the values within that algorithm, that's why I wanted to get out there. Based upon the values of that algorithm. So put it like this. I'm gonna give you an image. Caviar. Think about the aspect of caviar. Caviar is nothing but fish eggs. We know what they are. At a point in time, caviar was seen as a high class delicacy. And then you go into that, like, yo, they eat all the entrails and all the, like, when you look at anything that's on a high class delicacy, usually they're eating the remains of something. So it puts you into that spectrum of they're always eating the remains of something. They're saying that it's a delicacy, but why is it a delicacy? They're the middleman between the delicacy because they have not, in this space, mankind has to be able to accept, and Brother Panic breaks it down in one of his lectures from like a while back. And it was crazy how like I was putting everything together a couple of weeks ago for lectures. And I was like, I went back and looked at that video, and everything that he said within the video, I caught the context and I could take it further because it was simply reinforcing where I was at. So take the thing about caviar, number fish eggs, high class delicacy. Then you take sushi, high class delicacy. You keep coming down this line. You keep coming down. You start watching things come down. Caviar, high class delicacy. There's high class fields, rack of lamb and mint jelly and all these things, all that bullshit. And then you come all the way down to this level. I'll be glad when I'm able to afford that. If your mindset's stuck within the struggle, then as soon as you get it, I'm gonna get all the things that I never even had. Baba Dick Gregory spoke on that. He was like, in the beginning, for Black people, they'll need $1 million worth of goodies just to remove the bad taste of everything that they've been through. So that indulgence is needed. So when you're seeing somebody, and we're gonna go back to I'm stuck on that key point. So when you're thinking about it like this, you're naturally chaos. You're chaos. You are the chaos engine. You are the maker of the matrix. These aspects of these things, now you're hearing people saying you have to accept the matrix. Fuck that shit. No. You are the creator of the matrix. By saying that I'm going to accept the matrix for how it is, outside of the aspects or the context of saying I'm accepting what this is based on it has to exist at this certain level, but I'm not a part of it. That's the separation that we get stuck in. So you go to Red Lobster. You want to impress a shorty. Now chicks want to be shorty independent. They want to impress a dude. So they go to Red Lobster. You go in the Red Lobster, you see the older side effects, the older Tomahawks, the older folks doing the same thing you're doing, but will give you this face or this feeling or this vibe that you shouldn't be there. You should not be able to indulge in this because you haven't came to this level. When in reality, the reason that they don't want you to be within that space or to go to the next level or to even show that you can go to that next level, it's okay. The reason that they don't want you to go to that next level is because it gives them a threat. Remember the preservation thing. It's always about self-preservation. Mankind is trying to mankind does not want to accept itself and where it's parented from, so it cannot become human. Mankind is the aspect of thought of not accepting what parented it to become human. Mankind cannot accept the changes, the evolution to becoming human, into the human paradigm. That's why it's mankind, humanity, then everything else to the next level. So if I'm stuck within that aspect of I went to Red Lobster, I wanted to impress this shorty, so I took her to Red Lobster. I wanted to impress this shorty, so I took her to Olive Garden. That's the same equivalent when you move up in the level and you sit there and hit it. And you got the motherfucker that says, I want to impress a shorty, I'm going to take her to Benihana's. I want to impress a shorty, I'm going to take her to Cheesecake Factory, Benihana's, PF Chang's, and any place like that. They're still stuck within the same conflict. I was listening to the Outkast album the other day, and I remember when Andre 3 Stacks put that line in there, like, I'm still living check to check just like you are. I need you just like you need me. That's the way that my lifestyle is needed, is dependent upon you wanting to get to this level. That's what everything within this level is stuck within. This moment of sitting your ass the fuck down is giving you the aspect of like, damn, if I really want to go somewhere, what the fuck am I going to do? So I go back to the conversation I was having with my mans when I was getting my hair lined up, getting everything fresh. We had a whole conversation. We had a whole build. Every conversation that I've had ever since beforehand has bloomed into a structure of more positive streams of thought. Streams of Thought was also a great album. Streams of Thought 1 and 2. Black Thought, great album. Sonically great. Loved it. It makes you think. And I got another point about thought. When you're going into this aspect of yourself, understanding your higher self, coming into your higher self. Yeah, it's an awesome album. Black Thought, Streams of Thought, the first one and the second one, awesome. So you take yourself into this thought process of, okay, cool, I'm going to go to Red Lobster. I've acquired enough to go to that space. But within that space, you feel uncomfortable because the reflection within that space is to make you uncomfortable. Because there's something for you to learn within that space. I was having a conversation. No, this actually happened to me today. I went to my local apple crate store, my local health food store for my CBD and my drinks, my usual refreshments. And I'm sitting there ringing out my order. I'm standing at the register, punching in my numbers, waiting for my mans to ring up my stuff, get my stuff rung in. And my sense hits. I see the door. I see someone walking up to the door. I don't know if it's I don't know who the fuck it is at this time. I just naturally open the door. I press the buttons, switch over, open up the door. Thank you, sir. Older white woman. In my mind, I was like, I just felt like I was motherfucking Benson. In my mind, I was like, damn, I felt like I was motherfucking Benson. Wait, I'll slow it down. But I'm sitting there taking to that thought process. My mindset is no longer within that paradigm of sitting there. I just do things. That chaos. Now that I've accepted that I am the chaos, I just do things. because I'm within that algorithm that I've programmed within myself, that I'm always going to be manifesting exactly what I need, exactly what the fuck I desire. So I live within that encompassing. So at a moment like this where energy's going fucking crazy, retrograde's going fucking crazy, and this is coming up next, and this means this, for the initiate, yeah, that's cool. That's no longer, I'm not saying that it isn't great. In the aspect of that information is being shared, that is the great part. But in the aspect of me, I remember when I was an initiate, when I was first coming into my consciousness, coming into accepting my awareness and my consciousness, I remember looking at those things, wishing that I could do those things. I can't wait until I do my first moon ritual. I can't wait till I do my first this. I can't wait until what day they say, Monday, do this, and Tuesday do this, and Wednesday do this, and Thursday I have to do this. Okay, cool. So now so you create all these new algorithms, all this new data that you got to apply. But if your subconscious is still seated within struggling, then guess what you're going to reflect in? You're going to struggle to meditate. You're going to struggle to charge your crystals. You're going to struggle to do whatever ritual. So if you're struggling in serving the identity of yourself, if your mindset's stuck within struggle, then everything you do will be based upon struggle. Everything you manifest, what's good. Stay tuned for the question and answer period. We don't get into that. Stay tuned for the question and answer period, because we got a lot we don't get covered into. Stay tuned for that question and answer period, and we'll get into any of those questions. But you're taking yourself into this thought process of that you're based upon struggle. You're based upon oppression. So if your basis is, your intentions are, I'm going to come out of struggle, my intention is to be coming out of oppression, then your affirmation has to feed from that. Whatever you allow in to that area, your underworld, into your subconscious, that's what's feeding it. So this goes into the algorithm. I'm having conversations now. My conversations are geared towards my craft. Everything that I do is geared towards my craft. Everything that I speak on is geared from my craft. Me standing on my square. Me standing in that purpose of my knowing myself, going deeper into myself. So everything that I naturally do is a reflection of that. Everything that I see is a reflection for me to learn from, based upon that original formula, that original algorithm that I set the atonement in my own self. Unlocking that, grabbing hold of that key, allowed me to unlock all the fucking doors. One key unlocks all the fucking doors. It's that skeleton key. This is Papa Lucy. That's the skeleton key. That one key of understanding that I must die first opened up all the other doors to me to accept death. So when I read the Book of the Dead now, when I go back and I fumble through the pages and flip through the pages of the Book of Dead, when I flip and fadangle through the pages of the Gnostic texts and the Green Sea Scrolls and the Emerald text, when I go through these texts, based on the algorithms of me doing that work in myself, I get a whole entirely different interpretation based upon reinforcing the square that I'm standing on. We do this unconsciously, looking for a reason to exist within a space. That's why I said earlier, the reason that motherfuckers are mad about blackface, in truth, in this one bit of truth, this is forcing you to think, is because you don't want anything stopping you from living in your blackface. It's the same thing as going into fucking Red Lobster or Benihana's or PF Chang's, or one of these places where it's predominantly an upper class or a status of upper class status, and they don't want you to be there. It's not that they don't want you to be there. It's just you are a chaos within their algorithm that they cannot solve. They can't see you in that space, no matter, because of the algorithm that they're based their whole entire self-preservation on cease to exist. It makes no more sense because you're coming into that space. It's all fucking energy. That's the aspect of the energy shifting. You coming into that new self. You coming into that nuance. You have to first accept that as mankind, I have to understand that why am I human? Until you can accept that humanity is not it for you, you'll battle with mankind. Because mankind is stuck within the conflict of not accepting what the fuck made them. What the fuck is their purpose? You're stuck within conflict trying to say, how can they be so evil? How can they be monsters? How can they do all this shit? That's what the fuck they were created for. Their whole entire existence based upon which is inverted. So theirs is for it's still on that same conflict. So it's like self-preservation, the self-preservation of destruction. As long as they survive, they're a destructive force. They don't want you to become the destructive force that you naturally have to become. They don't want you to step through that door of death. So they'll put you in this constant thought process. I looked at it the other day and I was looking at how that shit linked up, and it was fucking mad crazy how it linked the fuck up. But I remember when they did the protesting and everybody's protesting, and then everybody wants to take that moment of solidarity and put their fist up, white, black, and everything. Then you got mothers, then you got kids bucking against their mothers and their parents about the things that they were saying at a point in time. No, mom, the numbers are this and the numbers are that. And they showing you this imagery. And then right after they did that, they're talking about they got motherfuckers hanging. They're hanging motherfuckers again. They never stopped hanging anybody. They never stopped hanging. They never stopped hangings. They never stopped lynchings. They just devolved back down to their natural way of how they're devolving back down to their natural ways of dealing with things in the imagery that follows it. So they create from that thought form. So you can look at Steve Harvey, Nick Cannon, all these actors and entertainers in that aspect of Nick Cannon lost his show and now he's over here on this other show, but he's playing that role of the fool, which he's playing the excellent role of the fool, and getting into that aspect, stuck giving you that imagery that you need to see, publicly lynching them. Now they're going back to they live within conflict. This level is within that conflict. So all they can show you is lynching because it's going to bring up an emotional thing that you haven't learned from. The only way something can challenge your emotions and challenge you to be in imbalance is based upon the aspect that, oh shit, because I haven't learned from it yet. Your natural aspect, being chaos, is to buck against anything that is of the norm. That is your in tune, inherent first gift of being chaos. So when they tell you to forget about slavery and give you reasons behind forget about slavery, your natural to go against it is fuck that, nah. This, nah, we were slaves. This was 400 years. You put all that shit up there on the table. They can't go to that level. They only can intellectualize what it is. That's why they can give you roots. They can give you all these 12 years a slave. They can always give you the conflict. They can always give you that chaos factor based on the intellectual part. But they cannot take it into the aspect of the feeling of being and going through and being subjected to it. They can't tap into that energy. They can't tap into that energy. They can't interface with that energy. Since they cannot interface with that energy, they need you to naturally say, nah, I can't forget being a slave. I can't forget what you did to my forefathers. I can't forget what you did to this, this, and that, and the third. That's how they tap into the energy. We're not talking about an aspect of forgetting to cut it off. We're going into an aspect of understanding what the fuck the purpose of it was. That was already pre-administered. That gives me, when I think about slavery and reading Gnostic texts and like those constant streams of information, the constant streams of thought that come through my mind, downloads, channels. When I think about slavery, all I think about is being stuck within the human body. That's all that can come to my mind of, damn, I'm stuck within the human body. Look what my body went through at a point in time based on the knowledge that I had. The knowledge that they were fresh out of that spiritual realm. Put it like this. They woke up in disorder and they learned through the disorder to organize themselves in a manner to exist within that level and do what they needed to do. They demonize the thought process, which is our original information of hidden in plain sight. They'll say hidden in plain sight, doing what thou wilt. They'll give you all these aspects, then they give you the sinister Alistair. They'll give you Crowley. They'll give you Crowley. I cannot remember that fucking woman's name right the fuck now. The one that they said is the mother of metaphysics. Don't matter. It'll come to me. They give you all of these aspects and filters, lenses to subject that energy so you feed into it. Now, I don't read that. I won't read this. I won't look at this. I won't look at that. At this moment in period in fucking time, I remember going to fucking school and the white kids, I took that thought process. They had on hats. They were showing their independence or their individuality. So they had on a dad's hat. They had on fucking shirts with obscene shit on the front of it. And all we could say based on training was, that's that white people shit. So we laid power into that space, into that key, not tapping into that lock, to the ability to unlock it by separating ourselves from what the fuck it really was. That individuality, the liberation to do what the fuck they want. I do what I want, mom. I just want my fucking skateboard. You're so far ahead that you're behind. You're so far ahead. We've been here for so long that you're now behind. When you're carrying in that conflict of being so far ahead, but not knowing or not understanding what everything is back here. So if I'm light years ahead in thought, all I have to look forward to and forward thinking is whatever I'm creating up here. But if my mindset is still stuck on not understanding that I'm ahead, understanding that I'm advanced, understanding that I'm truly original, and applying those algorithms, I'm going to be stuck looking behind me, looking at the things that put me into that space. I'm going to be stuck fighting about something. I need that fight. I need someone to tell me that I need someone to tell me not to think about slavery. Because I need that. Because that gives me my identity of being black. That gives me my identity of being black. That gives me identity of standing behind blackface. See how that comes together? You still want to stay in blackface. But at the same time, that's why the information, and I had an interesting question that was on Facebook. So you come into your wokeness and your pro-blackness and the Afrocentric and that energy, and you're riding within that energy, sustaining that light. And the reason that light is sustained within that space is because you're still stuck within those same conflicts because you didn't learn from the conflict. It's not needed anymore. That gives you insight when you start looking at little white girls, little Hannahs all over the world are sitting there telling their parents, fuck off, your shit was wrong. Now that you're getting what you want, what the fuck are you gonna do with it? Sustain the same shit? You getting what you want and getting what you need only sets the tone that you need. Your needs and wants are only begetted by more needs and wants. I want for nothing, I need for nothing. Everything that I desire, I create. Based on my abundance, my wealth, my prosperity, based on being locked within that algorithm, those algorithms within myself and being in balance. So what I get are the questions to, how did you get to this? And how did that happen? And I can now have that answer and have that dialogue because I'm within that space. I'm within my realm. So I don't have to worry about what somebody thought about what I'm saying because I'm standing in, it's working for me. Study all, follow none is my biggest fucking mantra. Whenever I'm giving a consultation, when I'm doing a consultation, doing counseling, that's the mantra that I set into the space before I even do the introduction into the space of what I'm about to speak on. Study all, follow none. When you're open to the aspect of studying, allowing that information to come in so you can learn from it. When you're put into that space, into that mindset of speaking from that level, moving within that level, moving within that space, everything that comes to you is now information. Everything comes to you. Now you can get all the arrays of light that hit you and open up stuff inside of you. You now know how to apply from the mechanics. The inner workings of you are no longer in conflict. So now you can take in the new information based upon not being in conflict, even if it's in an imbalance. A moment like this, retrograde going all over the fucking place, niggas' energy. I got a consultation. I got consultations coming up. It is always against the same thing. And I remember I was sitting there having a conversation with my barber. This is actually one of the only conversations that we actually had within the barbershop. And he was like, so, and I was telling him about, I'm going to be stepping into that venture of what they say we don't have an outlet for. What's actually what people are saying we don't have an outlet for. And that's the actual therapy or the counseling into the depths of unlocking the aspects of your mind. We have many teachers for it. I teach within it, but I also give counseling into what unlocks, because the counseling is simply reinforcing what's already happening and putting it into the divine order. That's what I do within the counseling. That's what a reading is. The reading brings that clarity to that. Whether I'm giving you that reading or we go deeper with the consultation or we go into the counseling. My whole purpose is to take you from that seed that from the being stuck outside of the chaos into the chaos, outside of the noise into the noise, outside of allowing the chatter to hit you to coming inside of the chatter, allowing all of that chatter in so it's able to do what it needs to do. It needs to destroy your infrastructure. That's when we look at these fundamentally sound things and you got motherfuckers protesting and all this shit. It's still based upon the same algorithm of struggle and oppression. So I'm going to give you constant factors and images, repetitious images based upon the same symbol of what you're feeding. You keep getting to the door. That's why they can show you a man hanging from a tree. And I thought about it when I was thinking about it. They show you a man hanging from a tree. The first thing that came to my mind when I saw the man hanging from the tree was like, what did the serpent do in the Garden of Eden with the tree of life and the apple and shit? All I can see when I see the tree and a nigga a God hanging from the tree, first I'm able to celebrate it because he's free. That nigga's gone. That nigga's free. So that's the first balance into coming into that realization. That nigga's free. He ain't stuck here no more. That nigga's free. The second aspect when I'm looking at that image is through death there is knowledge, because I have an understanding that death translates to doth. Doth is that cipher at the top of that tree of life to get you into the tree of death, or the tree of knowledge, the tree of knowing inside yourself. So that nigga's free. All that's showing me is I got to put in more work. This is how you start using everything as a symbol, and you learn how to tap into every symbol. This is how you start opening up your mind to the symbol, and every symbol is something to show you what the fuck you need to be doing. That transmutation. If we're transmuting through pain, if I transmute through struggle, everything that I reflect is going to be upon struggle. If I transmute through whatever pain or whatever fear base that I'm in, and I'm transmuting through that, that becomes what shows everybody I'm transmuting through the pain. That's why Jasmine Sullivan Bust the Windows of Your Car goes so well. That's why that aspect of you stuck within that struggle, you stuck within that mindset, you stuck within that pain. That's why that song hits so well, because you stuck within the conflict of pain. That's why that's why whenever you looking at somebody on the other end and you're only looking at them based upon pain. So if Keisha Cole come out sing a whole fucking song talking about pain and all this shit, when she sing about being happy, it doesn't compute. I ain't gonna listen to her because I'm only used to her. I'm only gonna listen to her. I'm gonna listen to her earlier work because her earlier work was really where I was coming from. That's where I'm at. This goes into this balancing of you're transmuting through your pain. Everything in this realm is transmuting through pain on an imbalance to keep you at an imbalance. That's why that song, that's why the feel-good songs are back in the day. And I was thinking about an interview, and I talked about it in the podcast. I remember I was watching an interview with Trina. She said her words were, don't nobody want to be, oh shit. I don't want to burn my cloth. Nobody wants to be inside the club thinking. So putting together triple and quadruple and all these triple entendres and making motherfuckers think and making motherfuckers think a certain, make them actually force them to think about something, it's naturally gonna fall out. Motherfuckers just want to party, motherfuckers just want to bullshit. Until you understand what the fuck the purpose is, where it's at, the shit will repeat itself. It's just like in the same factoid, everybody sitting here within this level is sitting there talking about, yo, I missed the golden era of rap. I missed the golden era. I missed talking about the guns and the hoodies and being on the block and being in that space. I need that environment to thrive again. Counterbalance within conflict. Give you a thought. If I look at the gentrification of Harlem, Starbucks, I've been in New York. I've been back to the NY probably 3 times in the last 2 or 3 years. Taking that aspect of they got Starbucks, everything all clean and shit. And then I can listen to my man Benny the Butcher. I listen to Griselda. I listen to Joel Ortiz. I listen to these albums, and the algorithms that they're putting out are based upon something that I already saw. Ooh, ooh, she went back. Ooh, ooh. I'm gonna have to look that one up. But you take yourself into this aspect, what you were infatuated with, based upon the infatuation, is what you're locked into. They're locked in this infatuation. I just want to get back to this. I just want to get back to this. I want to get back to this. That algorithm exists on this level within these streams of thought based upon when you still got brothers standing on the corner spouting off the same amount of knowledge. Now it's less informative and it's more like the love and hip hop. This versus this versus that. This is these thought processes going back and forth. In the debate, somebody that's coming in to their initiative process that are coming from conflict are naturally going to be attracted to the conflict. So if you're at an imbalance coming into this knowledge, into this information, coming into your higher self and you're in conflict already, then of course you're going to attach yourself to the conflict. You're going to think that's what it is, because that's going to help you keep because you're in this space that's locking you in, that's forcing you to challenge you to go forward. Your infrastructure of what you knew, what you identified with, has to come to an end. That's what this physical shit is about. Every text tells you that it's on time. That's what needs to fucking happen. So you sitting there in that space and you hitting that shit and you like, why this shit ain't doing anything different? Why is this not showing me or ushering in anything different? Because it's not supposed to. All you're seeing is the time loops. I listened to Benny Butcher today when I was out and about doing my shit. And I was like, damn, that took me back to 1994. What my uncle used to talk about. But me understanding that it's within that space, within that structure, all they can do is repeat the same things over and over again. Giving you that algorithm based on that feeling. So you stuck within that feeling. It felt good. That feel good. But after a while, when you start listening to the algorithm and you're coming into the taps of your higher self and you start healing, the things that used to keep you expressing your fear or kept you above your fear, that love rhythm, the algorithm of that love, that true essence of that destructive force is now going through and it's lighting up everything that you need to get in contact with. Are you doing the work or are you not doing the work? That's what it's showing you. That's what I was trying to get back into. I was talking to my mans, and I remember he said one key thing in our conversation that sparked into my mind. He was like, I told him everything was a reflection. And he said he's not going back to the barbershop because he felt like he would have been stuck. And I was like, exactly. Everything's a reflection based upon, just like for me, if I went back to the real world, the illusion, and working that traditional 9-to-5 aspect, I would be stuck. All this new energy that I've invoked over this period of time to come to this point would be in vain, because I wouldn't be using it as I needed to use it to become. I would be using it in servitude. You're stepping out of the serving aspect and coming into your becoming. The things that you used to serve in an independent aspect, that used to serve you based upon your dependence, now you're coming into the self-sufficiency of realizing why that's needed to be there. That's the aspect that we need to come into, why that's needed to be there. That conflict is needed down there to sustain that level as I can learn from it to come into my balance. That conflict shows me imbalance. If it affects me, if it triggers something in me, I have to find out what it's triggering inside of me That's the aspect of the occult, or the hidden knowledge, the hidden mind. What's in my subconscious? What is that feeding? Why do I keep looking at it? Why do I vicariously, continuously live through old slave monologues in the love and hip hop era debates going back and forth? Why do I vicariously live through that? Because something inside of me, that toxicity, that poison inside of me, I have not learned how to eat the poison. And when you read the ancient Indian, when you go into the Indian text, when they're talking about Shiva eating the poison of the worlds, this goes into the aspect when they broke it down into intellectual fundamentalism of eating the poison was the same thing as when they created an antidote, because you need the poison in order to change the natural or chemical body of yourself. So that's why they push, you got to be this and you got to be this and you got to set this trend and you got to be these things. If you're not using it in an aspect and taking from it in order to take yourself to another level or bring yourself into balance as you're learning, then you're going to be feeding the outside force. There's a reason that I'm plant-based. There's a reasoning for my being plant-based. My original reason for being plant-based was like, nigga, I need to clean myself up. I need to take everything out of my body that no longer is acceptable, that's only feeding. So when I was in that mindset, when I became vegan, 5 years ago, when I became vegan, when I became plant-based, my mindset was, I got to get rid of all this old shit. I got to detox myself. So everything that I saw, when I set that into my mind, I did not understand it at a point in time then. I can even deeply more explain it now. But you take that aspect, like everything around me changed. The first things that came up was vegan, being vegan, being plant-based is expensive as fuck. Man, all that shit costs this much. Then the conflicts came up. Why salad costs more than a burger? All those things came up within that space. Being separated away from that space, this is what gave me the separation. Based upon me never having to see struggle with both archetypes of homes that I lived in. I had the traditional mother-father archetype home structure, but when I met my father, that transition in 2003, when I met my father, he was doing the same. He was doing everything that I thought needed to have these two figureheads in, was living over here in this darkness. That it was the darkness, this being in the streets, being the plug, being the dealer, being in that aspect. I had to go to the dark side of myself to understand that, damn, what I truly need is not always going to be within that light. So you take that aspect. So what I was bringing to the light was first all of the negatives about being plant-based. Because even me at a point in time, back when I was still in that aspect, I remember the first time one of my exes, she was like, I'm about to go vegan. I was like, nigga, I can't give up fucking chicken wings. And I've said this before. I can't give up fucking chicken wings. Fuck that shit. But then I was thinking about it, I was trying to find a reason to actually eat chicken wings. The reason that information came out and it resonated, it triggered something in me based upon my identity. It triggered something in me based upon my identity. I can't live without chicken wings. And then I had to remember all the times I was eating chicken wings. At a time when every time I ate chicken wings, every time I was eating chicken wings or whatever, I was going to the pool hall with my people, my homies at the time. I was always in this party-like situation. I needed some quick finger food to eat or some shit. Then I was like, wait, I'm not hanging out with them anymore because I'm coming into this different level. I don't need that anymore. So in being able to now realize that alpha moment or realize that moment, I'm able to isolate it. This is that scientist. I'm able to isolate that piece and plug it into the formula. That's my new algorithm. Now I create this new chain. Everything that you have been through, everything that you are doing is needed so you don't have to do it again. The more things that you got to go through, the more things, the only way that they stop is so you don't have to do it again. The only way that you don't do it again is if you are learning from it. What did you learn from it? How did you learn how to reverse engineer that energy and use it for yourself? Consciously, not unconsciously. Unconsciously leads to the aspect of that outside of toxic masculinity, that toxic masculinity based upon the toxic archetype of the patriarchal system already being toxicity. So that's one round of conflicts. Toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity needs a antagonist to live from. Let's give it the feminine. Let's give it the feminism archetype. What are the feminists? What is male toxic? What a feminist is against is what is within male toxic, masculine toxicity. What is toxic based upon being the male archetype. The feminist cannot accept these aspects, and the masculine and the toxic aspect cannot accept the feminism aspects. So they're at constant conflict. They're two sides of the extreme. Coming into center into balance of me understanding both sides, they need each other to thrive off of. How do I tap into that energy? I'm not pro this and I'm not pro that. I have understanding within that of understanding to the deeper level what this means. And I have deeper understanding and understanding what that means. What can I take from this and use? What can I take from this and use to understand? As you're stepping forward and you're coming into that understanding of these things, that's how you step forward through it. Until you can do that on the basic levels, you get stuck within the monologue of oppression. Because the monologue of oppression has already been programmed into your mind. So everything that you do is going to be a reflection based upon that. Whatever the fuck you're seeing at that moment in time. Whatever trauma originally set the line of triggers, the new effects within your space, you're going to hit all of those triggers, or you're going to try to avoid all of those triggers. Your identity, your ego avoids all of these triggers. It gives you the guise of dodging all of these triggers, when in reality, it's hitting every single fucking trigger. In reality, your ego is pressing every fucking button. It needs to press every fucking button, or else it can't give it a reason for it to exist, for you to stay what the fuck you are. See, that's why you don't fuck with niggas like that. That's why I don't fuck with bitches like that. That's why I don't do this. That's why I don't fuck with Trump. That's why I don't fuck with this. You shut yourself down from motherfucking aspects to learn from. Take an aspect like this. The mothering energy, the natural mother infant, the natural mothering infrastructure, the natural mother archetype of that nurturing of the feminine energy of the spiritual aspect. Imagine your nigga come to your fucking, like, I'm going to give one story and I'm going to give an aspect. I'm going to give the example, then I'm going to give a story. Nigga show up to your house. Just got out of prison or out of prison. And when we're talking about prison, we ain't talking about prison. We're talking about that mindset. Stepping out of a prison. Stepping into freedom. They come to your house with their PlayStation in one hand, and in the other hand, they got a bag of dirty clothes, and over their shoulders, they got all their Jordans. They came to your space with all that they had, all that made their identity, and all that they use. They brought you two elements. They brought you the element of what their identity is, what houses their identity, their clothes, and what's important to them based upon identity and their infrastructure, and their PlayStation, so they can play their Madden and play their game all the fucking time. So what keeps them outside of dealing with the substructure of actually dealing with what they need to deal with. They bring this into the womb. They bring this into the new womb. They brought this down with them into the new womb. As you're doing everything that you're doing naturally, based upon being independent, and you don't need nothing on to that nature. They're doing exactly what is needed for you to sustain your space, to sustain what you stand by. Remember, independence is based upon dependence. Self-sufficiency is based upon the intellectual understanding of what independence is and coming into the compassion or the balance of understanding that there's needed something in substructure and created based on my steps going forward. So it's always going to be there, but does it serve me? Does it not serve me? Self-sufficiency goes, independence is stuck within the conflict of good and bad, right and wrong, nigga ain't shit, this nigga ain't this bitch ain't this bitch ain't that. You got them shoes on. Choices within ego. On the other end, within self-sufficiency, understanding that everything is interconnected based on yourself, you're stepping outside, you realize that you're that chaos factor. So everything that you do ushers in those subcompartments. You're not a part of the subcompartments, but you are of the transitioning of those subcompartments, those subjects that are subject to come into play. So I give you an aspect. I remember when I first moved back to North Carolina, felt like fucking old boy in the wood. I moved back to North Carolina. I remember like I was working at a fucking restaurant. I working at Olive Garden. Had a dude there. He was going through a struggle with like finding a place to stay, going through some things. I was like, I bet you can. I said, my brother's supposed to be coming down for 6 months to get himself on his feet. But if he don't give me the call or he say he ain't going to do it, he don't go straight to, I think he was going to Florida. My brother went to Florida at the time. I'm going to go down to Florida. He can go down to Florida. You can get the room for 6 months. And we set up everything from there. When he showed up to my door, he had his PlayStation 3 in one hand and he had a bag of shoes and clothes in the other hand. That's all he brought. From that jump, everything that he said was always based upon building something. So it was always, my space was that from the feminine aspect of energy, my space was the new womb. This is when you start understanding the aspects of the feminine and the masculine energy, that you are both, that androgynous being that God. At this point in time, I was the God and didn't realize that I was the God. I didn't come into the realization that I'm God. I am a God. I didn't come into that realization yet. So I lit my mans. I remember I said, yo, your keys in the mailbox. I got to go handle some business. When I come back to the house, we'll break bread and we'll have a conversation about it. Break everything down, put it all on the table. So I go handle my business. He sent me a text. Yo, whatever you into, I want in. Because he saw my spot. He saw my spot. He was like, damn, whatever you're into, I want in. Under the aspect, me understand, I was like, damn, he really think that he must be thinking I'm doing. He's thinking from the space that he came from. So he can't embrace or see this level of light outside of the spectrum of where he came from. Because all he can see down here at this lower level is we both work at the same restaurant. From until that point was created, that opportunity, that job was created. That's like someone have an aspect of a conversation. I remember old head used to have a conversation all the fucking time. And I remember this is when I was like living in, I want to say I was living in Tennessee. And the old head was like, he was always arguing with like the young girls. They were all going to college, whatever. It was a college town in Clarksville, Tennessee. There was a college town. So he would always argue, like, they will always argue back and forth talking about, you here too, you here too. I'm not here to do this. I'm only here until I'm done with school. What's your excuse? And he would get upset because it challenged him to, he didn't have an answer. He did not intellectually have an answer, so it caused him to always become stuck in the conflict of being argumentative of his truth. In order to step into his truth of why he's there, in order for him to combat at that level, he had to combat with that truth first within himself. He wasn't willing to do that, so he always was in that conflict, always argumentative. So this goes back to my man. So we sitting there. I was like, man, nothing. Like, I'm just working. I mean, in my mind, I'm in a different level. Like, yo, I can see something about investing and things like that of that nature. In his mind, he was thinking about like I was still in the fucking game. I took the aspects of what I learned from being in that life and applied those same mechanics, those algorithms. I unconsciously didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Unconsciously took those same algorithms and applied them into my everyday life anyway. So I get back to the house. We have the conversation. He was like, yo, what you doing? I was like, nothing. I was like, I just live a pretty quiet to myself life. Like, I just do things like investments and shit like that. He was like, investments? And like all these things were piquing his interest. The spirit's always going to lead things into a space, whether it's ready for it or not. It's not about being ready. It's about being open to it. Because you can be ready. You can say that you can speak that you're ready, just like you speak like you don't give a fuck about it. You can speak that you're ready, just like if you speak, you don't give a fuck about something. The spirit's always going to usher you into a space that is going to make you the most uncomfortable. The universe is always going to interface you into a space where you're always is going to challenge your conflict. It's going to challenge and trigger every one of your traumas. It's going to trigger every one of those inner workings or the insecurities. It's going to challenge your insecurity system, your internal security system. It's going to knock you off the point in that pivot. Like, wait, whoa. It's going to challenge you. If you're not humble to yourself, then you'll allow it to eat you. Your energy will be used within that chaos. You're going back and forth in an argument because you're not facing your truth. Every argument that you have outside of yourself, argument, conflict, or you're saying you're sorry, or these aspects to that level, I'm sorry, I'm not going to stand for this, I'm not going to do this, hands up, I can't breathe. All of these symbolisms and these spells that you use, they keep you locked within the conflict. Nigga, I can breathe, but you got your leg on my neck. Common sense, yeah, of course you can't breathe. So let's give you a symbol. This is how that matriculates. I'm going to give you a symbol of why you can't breathe. That's common sense. But if you're in emotional imbalance, always looking for the conflict, because if you're stuck within conflict, you're always going to look for the conflict. So now you're going to look for the motherfucker sitting there, got a foot on his neck. And then in that same space, within the higher realms, within that space, you have motherfuckers sitting there saying, oh, he faked his death, it was a ritual, whatever it may be. It doesn't matter what the fuck it was. How did you benefit from it? What matters in that space is, did your humanity benefit from it based on your imbalances and based on you standing for your rights, based on humanity, trying to be human? Or did your monster benefit from it? Your soul, your primordial true self balance from it. That's the monster. That's that soul. That's that archetype. That's that dark. That's that monster. It's that deep, dark energy that is your energy, that is of you, because from that dark energy, you bring new light. What did it bring to the surface? For me, doing constant work, whether I'm doing work for myself or I'm doing work for others and doing counseling and everything that I do in that paradigm, I need that. I don't need it in an aspect to exist. I'm aware that it exists, so I don't need or want it to exist. I'm not on the side of need and wants. I understand that it exists. I understand why it exists. It creates chaos. What energy is it creating? Because from that energy that is creating at that level is going to propel me to the next level. When you start looking at things based on how it's propelling you to the next level, you can understand why motherfuckers say they don't like fucking Trump. Trump in a outskirt. Trump is not about the secret shadow government, and Trump is not about the New World Order. Either side that he's on, he's not for you. He's an aspect or an archetype for you to learn from in bonding yourself, in being stuck in a certain space. That's what he's representative of. The conflict, causing the ruckus, making everything be seen. He's showing you everything. This month, I've never seen anybody tweet more than that motherfucker. I don't even have Twitter, but I always see the post in my fucking Instagram on my Facebook. That's what he's showing you. That constant conflict. He's the conflict within that space. Where motherfuckers were comfortable. Then you go back to the 8 years Obama was in office. Everything about Obama being in office was on a spiritual aspect of you coming into your higher self. You looking at it for any other way, you're gonna be stuck within the conflict. The motherfuckers talking about, but Michelle was a man. Do you give a fuck? Why does that fucking matter? Damn, that makes sense. Barack and the pedophile and Pizzagate and touching the little boys, and Michelle Obama was actually a man, but she turned into a woman. And at a point in time, good old Barack went sitting there. He was getting tired of looking at the man in the face, and so he needed a little boy. He needed that actual male face to energy to tap into. What the fuck does it matter to you? What that motherfucker does is what that motherfucker does. Let that motherfucker do it. We have to come out of this aspect of expecting something. We put so much energy into something outside of us to do something for us, to bring understanding to something for us, that when it actually starts doing it, you start kidding. If you're putting that rhythm out, you're looking for and search for something, setting that standard, setting that petition, setting that affirmation. I just want a good man. I just want a good woman. I remember back in the day, motherfuckers like, I just want a good God-fearing man. I want a good God-fearing woman. I never once said it. I remember one time trying to actually say it, and it shit didn't fucking work. I was like, something didn't set right in me, and then you come down to the line of like, nigga, why would I want someone that fears themselves? But that's needed in that aspect. As the de-evolutionary process happens, you're becoming the opposite of what it is to be within this space. You're going to the other side of what they're stuck in the conflict. You're going to the other side, or the other half of the polarity, to the higher self. So everything that you are becoming in the higher is naturally going to be abnormal to everything that's within your lower. Everything that you're going into the higher is going to be abnormal to your lower. So the aspect of materialism, hoping, wishing, unity, all of those fucking traditional morals based on humanity and the infrastructure of humanity will leave you not being able to tap into your higher self. Your higher self is the feminine aspect. Your higher self is the nurturer. That's that nurturing energy. That's the wisdom. You cannot acquire wisdom until you have first obtained and applied the knowledge. That's the masculine archetype. That's the lower half of you. That's why they say, that's when every time you see a burning heart with Jesus on it, and he doing the same shit as Baphomet, doing the same shit as Shiva, doing the same symbol as Kali, doing the same symbol as the Buddha, doing the same symbol, as above, so below. And you see that flaming heart. Every time you look at that shit, and I'll give you all the riches down here. I give you what to give you power. I'll give you what to give you pleasure. I'll give you and put your home in order. Materialism, conformity based upon your identity, and the power to project from that space. So I want you to submit to me and indulge on all this lower shit. That's all motherfuckers are doing right now. Because as soon as the motherfucking riot broke out, motherfuckers is going to go loot. What are they going to go fucking loot for? Shit that they ain't never had. Ooh, I need a new TV. When just months before that, motherfuckers had stimulus checks and refund checks and shit. And then went and got, I got another TV. So I got 2 TVs in the crib so I can play Xbox in the living room. And then I can put the PlayStation in the other room. So I can create within my substructure, my space, places for me to escape within. And then when I can't escape within these substructures within this space, I got to find something else to escape in because I need and want escape. I don't understand how to create my own escape. I don't understand. I don't need to be escaping from anything. What I'm not understanding is I'm not escaping based upon the imagery because I'm looking for escape. That's what this music at this level is about. It's about escaping. In the conflict within escaping. These motherfuckers talk about pop, pills, get high, and just let shit the fuck go. The other aspect of it, look at the connection, the golden L was telling you to think. It's in synonymous rhythm. That's why I always tell people, I always use the older music to channel, and I use the newer music to conjure. I use the older music to channel, and the new music to channel. No, I use the new music to conjure. I use it for channeling too, but I use it mainly for conjuring. Because it's an untapped source of energy that's being let down. It's more spiritual. It's spiritually tuned to the lower vibration of this level to sustain this environment. So if I put my distaste for the new music, if I put my distaste in the new music, in the new fads, and the new trends, man, I hate these kids out here doing this. It's the same thing as me sitting there battling back and forth with Black Lives Matter, LGBTQIZ. It's the same algorithm of battle of thought that I'm putting into my mind that I'm feeding this area. So I can't tap into it because I'm in it. Because I'm in this space over here. In order for me to get into this energy and use it, I have to first become the energy. But it doesn't serve, in my mind, intellectually, it don't serve me a purpose. I don't see the reason for 16 songs all with the same rhythm. Niggas talk about the same thing in every fucking song. Just use the same autotune in every fucking song. Nigga, connect to the rhythm. One second. Let's return back to my post. You're stuck within that algorithm. You're stuck within that space of yourself living out you're living out your guilt. You're living out your guilts and your turmoils and your pains, and you're seeing it played out in front of you in conflict. So it makes you feel like you're not alone. And then you can listen to a Drake song and it says, I'm always surrounded, so I'm not alone, but I always feel alone. And then you start, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. And oh my God, that's exactly how I feel. And then you go from listening to that and you watch a Love and Hip Hop fucking reunion. You're like, oh my God, they're talking about this, this, and this. And oh my God. And then you flip to the news and you keep the TV on too long. Then the news comes on. And then you sit there, oh my God, they just killed another black man. And they just killed another black woman. They just killed another black child. They just did this, this, and this. All that leaves you in the turmoil locked into this space. Instead of you learning how to use that energy and cultivate that energy to benefit you, to unlock yourself. That's coming into your spiritual self. The things that are no longer going to serve you any purpose is because you're becoming. You're no longer serving. So that's why nothing serves a purpose anymore. This is the aspect when motherfuckers get to a certain level within spirituality, the wokeness, they become pious and against everything else. So they're acting out the Gnostic information based upon intellect. You can tell that they've read something about Gnosticism. So they're acting out the Gnostic intellect based on the intellectual level, but they're not actually applying it. So they're acting out the thought, doing exactly what the book tell you not to fucking do. They're acting out the thought. They're ushering with the thought what they do. And they're using that thought based on intellectual. This is why I do what I do. This is why I don't do this. And this is why I don't do that. When in reality, they're stuck within the same fundamentals based upon morality and traditionalism and unity and living with under these, I'll just use these three markers, these three spaces as their blueprint. They're using these same three markers as their blueprint. So then you can't see going on to the next one. Yeah, that was a shameless Jay-Z plug-in. Don't give a fuck. Doing what, so motherfuckers doing what, so you'll read something about doing what thou wilt. Remember, everything that you take into your mind, just because you're not applying it doesn't mean it's not being applied. If you're not applying it, it will be applied for you. If you are not applying the information or the power that you have just absorbed into yourself, it will be used for you. If you're not using what is coming to you to bring you into balance and you stay out of an imbalance, it can be used against you because you have not accepted the challenge of your own, the challenge of forgiving and allowing your heart to burn, to beat, to flow, that energy rise. So now you're only going to speak from a certain atonement from the pain. So you're speaking thoughts of pain, feelings of pain, so you get more pain. So everything that comes around you is subsequently going to be pain. So when you actually get something that feels good, fulfills your soul, now you have to go through the balance of allowing it, that love, that true aspect of that love, to open that space in order to lay waste to everything else that no longer needed. So take that aspect of love to that level. So if I'm in love, and I explained a little bit of this last week. So if I'm in love, I'm fully open to everything I am going to learn that is going to challenge everything that is of myself at that moment. So me being in that space, everything that is challenging me based on me being the energy of abundant love, wealth, the love, being the abundance of love, the wealth of love, the prosperity of love, being in that aspect, being the chaos, being that chaos sphere, everything that is going to challenge me is going to give me the chance to go to my graduation. Everything that I went through in, like, I'll just say the last fucking 5 fucking years, we'll say in the last 3 fucking years, everything that I've been through in the last 3 years has ushered me into another moment to getting closer to what I needed to get to. By me being able, that trained thought of coming into balance, coming into that awareness, I had every phase that I've seen. The angry conscious nigga phase, the super woke nigga phase, because I wanted to speak about everything that the fuck I heard. Yo, man, I got this information right here. This is what they ain't telling us in school. This is what they happening right here. This is because they're trying to keep it locked within this matrix. I didn't do any speaking. I didn't do any public speaking until I got past that phase. I was not, because my spirit was not in it. My spirit needed me to be in that space to allow that shit to burn the shit away. I had a conversation, I had a download earlier today, right before I even started doing the fucking lecture, that ushered in for the lecture. I was standing in my living room, because we're in my living room right now. I was standing in my living room, and I was standing in front of the television, and I had on a different binaural playing on the TV. And it was, if anybody's been following me, I have one picture on my IG that has like the man, his hand is open, and it's like his mind's being exploded because the energy's coming down, and he's creating as it's coming down. It was similar to that image on the screen. My TV sits adjacent to my picture of myself. This is Papa Lucy. In that higher archetype of myself, this is Papa Lucy. The knower going into that death. As you look at this skull, you see the metamorphosis and shit. You see the heart, or the eye. Oh shit. The heart, or the third eye aspect, is the heart. So within this picture, the heart, I understand the heart is the true mind. But in order for me to get to the heart being the true mind, understanding that, I must come into this space of skill, or this death, of death, in order for everything to transform around me, so I can see it at a different level. So I'm sitting there, I was chopping it up. It was like a crazy out-of-body experience with the spirits. And I was like, yo, y'all chose me. I came to this reason for a point. And it was the first time that I actually, because I'm always interfacing with my energy, but I have brought to this new energy, this new balance. It was a ushering in of me being exactly what I needed to be at that point in time. Embracing every part of myself. I always use the Jay-Z analogy. When Jay was talking about when he in album mode, he don't go get his hair cut. He don't cut his hair. He just in the studio. Or most artists actually do that. I was in the studio for like the last, if you've been following my lectures, your first time, go back, watch my first lecture, The Reaping. Not the Facebook uploads. You can look at those as well. But look at my first lecture, The Reaping. Look at everything from the lighting to how I was sitting, my posture, everything that I was saying, how I spoke. Look at what I was saying within that first video. And as you go through my levels, as you go through my videos, my lectures, coming up to this lecture right here, you can see the changes within myself that started reflecting in my outside environment. I started becoming more comfortable in my skin. I became in the discomfort of my original skin, and allowing myself to go through these discomforting processes, being on screen with my hair not fucking done, had a hat on or some shit, beard not being right, but I was still giving it information. At this moment in time, this is my transformation, because everything that I've been doing is in synonymous link to me going forward with counseling, me going forward and speaking, me going forward and doing what I need to do. Everything is in the rhythm as it needs to be. You have to allow the process, because until you start allowing that process to actually take root, that chaos to happen, you're going to be stuck within the conflict of not letting the shit happen. But I'm scared. And that shit's going to start showing in that vibration, that frequency that you're going to be on. You're going to be within, you can't, because it's triggering something within inside you to come to the surface. You need that trigger to show that trauma so you can tap into the symbol. Until you're able to do this, everything you matriculate is going to be coming from the motherfucking trauma. I lost my train of thought when I was saying that. Wait 1 second. I remember looking at Bobby Hemmett videos. Looking at Bobby Hemmett, looking at Phil Valentine, looking at these different videos. I remember looking at Phil Valentine, Bobby Hemmett, coming up into the panic lectures. And I remember always watching Bobby Hemmett, and I can see when he was becoming more spiritual because he was becoming true into his actual self. What he was saying, how he was speaking it, how he was moving forward with it. I can see the transition of not needing things to be perfect. Because since I could see that aspect of things not needing to be perfect and stepping out of that aspect of things being perfect, stepping into that chaos, allowing that infrastructure of perfection, I could see that perfection only meant death. So then I could start understanding certain processes that I had to go through were based upon the deaths within myself, the death within inside of my ego, the deaths of my ego, the death of what I was holding on to based on humanity. So now it gives me the ability to now I had that thought. I remember I was walking back from my hairdresser, from getting my hair styled up. The shop is probably by car 5 minutes, so by foot it was like, I say it's a good little 30-minute walk. Nice little 30-minute walk. On my walk, I was looking at myself, and the first thing that I thought about was like, yo, I gotta get my hair cut tomorrow. Because I cannot be sitting here looking like, it was funny as hell, because like you look at the top of my head, these are my new locks. New beautiful locks. Oh, that's wearing my hat because that's that Papalucci embodiment. The size of my head, I didn't get a haircut. So I look like one of them niggas. So I look like one of those dudes. If you look at YouTube, go on YouTube and look at hair, type in man stalls or the installment for the man shits. So my locks was on my fucking head on the top, but it looked like I didn't have the money to do the other part. So like I was still stuck looking in between the realms. I was still stuck in between the spaces. So I could see it. I was like, nigga, I look like I'm stuck in between the spaces. Everything up here done and conditioned, but my sides don't look like they don't look like shit. I look like I'm in between transition. I literally saw myself in that alpha moment of that walk, I could actually see myself in between my transitions. The process of when I was like, it's time for me to get my hair done. The process of, okay, it's time for me to get my hair cut. I was in between the transition of myself. Because after I get my hair done, the conversation changed. I was actually more in the conversation. It wasn't just listening, or it was more in depth based upon myself. I just stepped out of that hermit phase. Looking at having the conversation with my barber, it was more about that coming out of that hermit phase of myself. Actually speaking out. Everything was flowing into sync with the energy that I've already attached to after doing the spiritual bath. So stepping in, doing my spiritual bath, then listening to that new mantra that I'm listening to. Everything is in alignment where it needs to be at. Because I'm only focused on myself. And I'm focused on myself in the ability of myself becoming better. So everything outside of me reflects me becoming better. So the traumas that are happening outside of myself that I'm aware of, I can look at them and learn from. As you begin to heal yourself, and heal your space and creating a healing space and reflection outside of you, everything that comes into that space in conjunction is going to be based upon that frequency of you healing. So if it's meant to be on that level, it has to go through that same process of healing. So you doing exactly what the fuck you're supposed to do. You're the Christ. They're looking for a savior. You're the Christ. You're the Christos energy. You have accepted your role. You have become your role. You've accepted your role. In you accepting your role of where you're at, you're allowing everything that needs to happen, that needs to fall off, in order for you actually to rise into your higher self. It's happening. That shit already, soon as you had the fucking thought that sent up to your higher self, everything coming down here at this level is the matriculation over the period of the motherfucking stuck within the aspects of time. It's been happening right in front of you. Everything from the imbalances, and you see in the LGBT community, you seeing that shit. That's imbalances and accepting becoming androgynous, accepting what you truly actually are. It resonates with you and you get upset with it. Why can't they just accept what the fuck they are? Ask yourself that question. Why can't you accept what the fuck you are? Wait, what the fuck am I? You look at blackface and these motherfuckers do shit with blackface, and you're mad and upset because they use the stereotypes about blackface, still with under the same energy from the LGBT shit. And then what you're upset with, why can't they keep their own shit? Why can't you let go of the shit that ain't really you? Why can't you see yourself letting go of what the fuck you need to let go of in order to learn it? That's the aspect of actually knowing your fucking, knowing thyself. It's cute and it's nice to say, oh, I got a bunch of fucking unks and I got a bunch of fucking crystals. That's nice. The old ass saying from the old heads, my uncle said it in fucking Spanish, so it didn't make sense when he says it in Spanish, and I'm not going to say it because it won't make sense in English. But it derived from the thought process. The clothes don't. The man make the clothes. The man makes the clothes. The clothes don't make the man. Looking at that from a unable to connect to chat. Interesting. Might have reached that limit. I don't know. That's very interesting. I've never seen that before. Okay, let's go back down. Let's go right down right here. How do I make it go down? All right, he's doing it by himself. We'll work on that. But taking that aspect of you going into your higher self and understanding, tapping into your higher self, you see what the fuck is right in front of you in order for you to learn from it. Without the emotional aspect being within your emotions, being stuck in your feelings. Because everything down at this level is made to keep you in your feelings, keep you in your humanity. That's why a fucking yeah. That's why when you sitting there, you having that aspect, you having that conversation, when you talking about a Drake song making you feel a certain type of way because it's keeping you within that algorithm of staying in that certain way of thought process, in that certain way of thought. As I'm looking, playing with the buttons, I stepping out of that, going this right here. It's not letting me be responsible on that side. All right, cool. We're gonna let that do what it needs to do over there. But you're coming into this aspect of yourself, your true self, sitting on your throne. What in the fuck? I don't know if y'all can see me or hear me. Oh, that shit froze. All right, we're gonna do this real quick. Oh, got smoke in my eye. Not trying to use my train of thought. Not trying to use my train of thought. Not trying to use my train of thought. 1 second. Wait. It's still doing that shit. I don't want to move anything because it's frozen, and I want to make sure that everything's in its place before I might have to create another stream. Okay. Oh, whoa. Come back to me. No. Whoa, wait. What do you mean no internet? Nigga, what? Fuck you mean, nigga, no internet? Oh, no.